Hi, my name's Dr. Priti Basra, and I am here on the Women Money Business podcast. And I've got with me today Denee Seaton, who owns a freelancing academy. Denee, would you like to tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am a full-time freelancer, and in December 2024, I launched SheFreelances, which is an academy for female freelancers or people who want to get into freelancing to scale and build a high-ticket freelance business, essentially.
Perfect. So, first of all, what do you freelance in, if you don't mind? Because I know, but for people that are listening.
Yeah, so I am a freelance marketer. That's like the broad term, but day to day, I do copywriting and paid social. So basically, every ad or ads that you see on TikTok, Meta for e-commerce brands, I'm maybe one of the people behind creating those. So
Okay.
yeah.
Are you, well, because I've heard this term ghostwriting a lot. Are you a ghostwriter? Is that one of your titles or?
No, I did look into that when I first started freelancing, but the copywriting that I do is so I work with primarily D2C brands, so e-commerce. So I do copywriting, emails, landing pages, like captions of ads and those sort of things. Ghostwriting, I think people more so refer to it as people doing copy for humans,
Other
like personal
people?
brands. Yeah. It is something I think I would be good at, but it's just not something I got into. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And in terms of your journey, then, so obviously you're freelancing now, and I know that you've mentioned platforms like Upwork before that you've sort of been on or sort of got sort of business from, but that's kind of led you into what you're doing today. What was that journey like? Did you always know that you wanted to go into marketing? How did that sort of develop?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't have a traditional degree in marketing, and I never really knew I would get into marketing, which now that I think back, it's kind of funny because all of the things that I did in my free time as a kid made sense for me to do what I do now. But I went to school for journalism. So I have a double major degree in journalism and humanities. I was always sort of good at writing, and I was really the girl that followed all the rules as a kid. So did good schoolwork, got good grades on my essays and everything. And my teachers were like, oh, you should do something in writing. I didn't really, was good at writing, but I didn't really like, let's say, literature or poetry. I was more so matter of fact. I like doing research. So, anyways, long story short, a teacher told me that I would be good in journalism. So I decided to do journalism. Also, my parents were like, you have to go to university, but you don't have to be a doctor or lawyer. You can do whatever you want as long as you go to university. So I was like, okay, great. So I took journalism and I did. I enjoyed it, but I think by the time I got to the fourth year, I was like thinking more about actually it was interesting because at the time when I was in journalism school, the scope, like the landscape of journalism was really changing because Donald Trump was president. There was just a lot of like conversation around media and what like how it's affecting culture and all that. And it was kind of, yeah, it was just changing the landscape a lot. And I didn't really feel connected to it anymore in the way that I did before.
Mhm.
So what was even the question? What was I? Oh yeah, how I got into marketing. So when I graduated, I started to look for jobs in journalism because again, I had this degree, even though I didn't feel too connected to it. I was like, might as well I just try and get a job. All the jobs were pretty like low paying and didn't really fit what I wanted. Like they were radio or broadcast or article writing, but in a weird small town where I'm from in Canada. And I was like, I don't want to move to go write articles about cats in the small town. I decided to do an internship, which was kind of a mix of journalism and social media. It was a small newspaper or magazine, I should say, that needed help with articles as well as a little bit of journal and their social media. They were just kind of getting an intern to help them out with stuff. So I did a bit of that. And then I realized I like marketing on the side. I was doing a side hustle. So before I became a full-time freelancer, I was doing something called Etsy print on demand. Long story short, that process of starting that side hustle led me into marketing because I had to learn a lot of stuff in order to make my store work and figure out SEO and all of that. And that is how I entered that world. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've got lots of questions based on what you've just said. So the first thing what I wanted to ask was, you said that things that you did as a child, you now realize that that was sort of you should have been heading into this journey. What did you do as a child?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of like the typical Gen Z. I grew up online, but I remember the day like we got Instagram and Snapchat, and I always saw it as I was just always in tune with it, and I thought it was interesting, and I always wanted to kind of share knowledge with people. I don't really know why. For example, I started a blog when I was, I think,
Okay.
16. It was literally just me being like, here's my lunch for the day, kind of like the videos we see now, but
Yeah,
just
yeah,
vlogs. I would just take a picture of my lunch box and be like, this is what I ate for lunch,
yeah,
or
yeah.
books I was reading, or what I did for my birthday. And I, at the time, blogging wasn't really a thing. I had to figure out the article, like the subject line and, SEO, or how to get people to read it. And I was just doing it all intuitively. And I would say even from when I was younger, I was just, I was, I always, I guess I struggled with speaking. So I would always write things.
Mhm.
And in order to like capture people's attention through writing, there's some marketing basics that you just have to intuitively understand. So yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, yeah.
But for many years, I was doing free blog writing. I had like Twitter pages that were just like motivational quotes, little things like that. And I never got paid for any of it. And I never thought to get paid for
Yeah.
any of it. It was just purely for my own fun. Yeah.
Was it just like a more like a hobby, would you say, that a way to express yourself, or
Yeah. Now when looking back, I guess it was a way to express myself. At the time, I didn't really know that. It was
yeah,
just
yeah,
like a thing I was doing. But yeah, because I was kind of known for being this like motivational person, even though I wasn't really doing anything. Like I had my old Twitter account, I would just tweet like, wake up, go to the gym, drink water. Like I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
doing stuff
Just
like that.
the basics,
Yeah.
yeah. But then, were you that person in real life as well? So, in terms of what I mean, were you introverted or extroverted? Did you use that platform as an outlet for your sort of what you were thinking? Like you mentioned that you was like to write things out rather than speak it. So, would you be that motivational in real life, if that makes sense?
hmm Yeah, I would say I am generally introverted, but primarily in high school, I was always kind of, I wouldn't classify myself as like the popular kid, but I was not like an outcast. I think I was somewhere in the middle. And I would talk to pretty much everyone. Like most people probably recognize me or remember me. I was in clubs. So I was like that in real life. I think I preferred writing as a medium and social media as a medium. I felt like I was able to express myself more there, but I was still pretty extroverted. I did sports and that kind of thing as well. So yeah.
And in terms of you, because you mentioned the Etsy shop that you had, and I've sort of read a little bit about that. Did you know you wanted to go into sort of the business world, the entrepreneurship, or did you fall into it based on what your interests were and what sort of in terms of writing and things?
Yeah, no, not at all. So really what triggered me to start the store was I was working the internship. It was just basic, I think a little over minimum wage. And I had just graduated university. So I had my student debt, and it was the first time I had to like think about my future in terms of like paying off the debt, paying bills, all the things. And I was like, I read the book Broke Millennial, and I started doing everything she said. So I like made a huge budget sheet, and I was like, if I kept making this amount of money every single day or every single year, I would not be able to do anything that I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
it really opened my eyes to like, okay, you can budget, that's good. And I'm glad you have this skill now, but also you need to make more money. And at the time, also coincidentally, there was the rise of like the online money, Gen Z kind of kids. So there was people doing all sorts of side hustles. I was scrolling one day while doing my job. I saw this one girl named Sarah Finance who's 22 now. She's a millionaire, and she posted this side hustle. So it's like, I have nothing to lose. Let me try it. So after the day ended, I opened my laptop and I just did it immediately. It took so long. I remember just being so frustrated, but I was like, might as well I try it. And then nothing happened for a couple weeks, I would say. And then one day I was just doing my work and I heard a cha-ching on my phone. So I had uploaded products and then someone bought it. And then that basically changed everything from that day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of that book, then, were you recommended that book by somebody? Or was that just something that you came across yourself?
Yeah, so this is funny because I'm actually living in London right now, but
Mhm.
I'm from Canada. But I would say my introduction to like the UK and London was Ali Abdaal on YouTube.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that then, obviously, but he, for some reason, I guess he was just blowing up then. So he came on my YouTube and he was just talking about life, how to find your purpose. So it all blended into where I was in life and where I wanted to go. So I believe he mentioned that book, or that was kind of like a gateway for me to look up a book to get there. But it was something I was like very obsessed with his videos and his podcast. And yeah, it made me want to, again, I was already that motivational type person. So I was like, I need to double down on this and get serious. Yeah.
How old were you then today when you got that book and you were watching these YouTube videos? How old were you then?
I was 21.
Wow. Isn't it?
I know, it's so weird to say now.
Yeah. And then in terms of, I mean, can you imagine if you didn't have social media, like what would happen? Like, do you know what would life have been like for you? It's just crazy to think like the power of social media, good and bad. But then in the business world, like for you, it's phenomenal, really, because it's like you said, it's changed your life, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's both good and bad. I'm definitely a stan of social media just because like a young I think I've posted about this before, as being a young woman from a small town. I had, a couple entrepreneurs that I know, but nobody really, really big in terms of like, having freedom and autonomy in the sense that, or in the way that we can access it now. Anyways, because I didn't really have that much access, if their social media didn't exist, there's no chance or very slim chance that I would be where I am now. Because I really used it as a tool instead of I realized that, I can be a consumer or I can be a creator. And I don't really know what I can create, but I've been creating to some extent for some time. So let me take a chance and be a creator. So I'm very thankful for social media. And I think as much harm as it has done to society, even to me as a kid growing up as well, I think there's a lot of benefits from it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
The next thing I wanted to touch on was obviously from your accent and what you've just mentioned, you're not from the UK. What brought you over to, was it the YouTuber that brought you over?
No, I think now looking back, because, well, I'll answer your question straight up first. There's no particular reason why I moved. There's an easy visa called the Youth Mobility Scheme visa you can get as a Canadian to the UK before the age of 30, I believe. And it's 2 years and you can extend it for 3. It's really easy to fill out. If you meet basic requirements, you can get it. And at the time, I was thinking of moving, just life circumstances. I was living at home with my parents and things were going to change. So I was like, I'm going to move now. I could move anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just do something interesting, cool, whatever. And because I had all of these kind of bricks laid in the UK in my mind and with other people, so clients, just kind of probably subconscious thoughts, like I said, Ali Abdaal, and just people I listened to that were really big in marketing. There's a huge marketing scene in the UK. I was like, this just makes sense. So I was like, this is the best time for me to make this move, if any time. So I just decided to go for it. And yeah, it's been great so far.
Do you have any family here, Denee? Like,
No,
how is that?
it's on at some points it's been harder than I thought it would be, but I would say overall it's been good. I am an only child, so I am used to being independent and being alone. I never thought I would feel like, wow, I miss my family so much. Like I knew I'd miss them, but I didn't feel like
Yeah.
that. But I did go home for the holidays, so I'm kind of like holding on to that. It's like February now, so I'm still holding on to that.
Yeah.
And it has opened my eyes and I realized maybe I don't want to move to like so far away from family. I think as I'm getting older and as I'm learning more about myself and my values, I think I definitely want to be closer to family, like, or bring family to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's been harder than I thought it would be, but overall it's been good. Like the pros outweigh the cons, I think. Yeah. So
Would you say by moving you've had more opportunity being based in London, or would it be the same? Because I'm mindful that you're an online business effectively, even though like it's you, but everything that you do is online. So potentially, could you do it from anywhere in the world? Does it matter what location you're in, or how does that work?
yeah, I built everything in my bedroom online. Even I was already connected to some people in the UK that I worked with through just from my laptop from my bedroom. So you can just build a good kind of personal brand and freelance career online. But I will say that being in person in London has helped me because you just can't beat in-person connection. So there's like an agency that I do
Yeah.
freelance for now that we were connected following each other, but we didn't really start to work together in the way we do now until we met in person and they got to know me, and other opportunities like brand trips and just like social media stuff. It's purely because I'm more accessible here. So yeah.
And in terms of, so obviously we've know about your journey from university to the internship, then going into marketing, and then doing the Etsy store, and then from the Etsy store to freelance. What's that journey like? What happened in there?
Yeah, so the internship was only a few months. And while I was doing it, I was also actually freelancing. I didn't really call it that at the time, but I was doing journalistic articles. There's a nonprofit in Toronto called Street Voices that I was doing podcast producing for on a freelance basis. I was doing their emails. I was just doing a bunch of random things just because they were like, oh, Denee's good at writing and she could probably do it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my like entryway into that world while I was doing Etsy. Long story short, my Etsy store got shut down. Etsy has like yeah, they have like very like weird policies and like an algorithm that's very finicky, kind of like getting like if you yeah, they just have very weird finicky like algorithms. So, and at the time too, they were raising their fees as well. So
Right.
it was just a whole thing. But anyways, I'm glad that happened to me because it was such horrible circumstances. I was doing my internship ended. I was doing Etsy. It was working really well. I'm like, okay, I'm going to show my parents what I'm doing. I'm going to show them how much money it's making. Literally the day that I showed my dad everything and I told him I was going to take it full time, the next day it shut down. And I was like, well, that's great. And my dad was on board. My mom was like, I don't really know like what you're doing. She was kind of confused and she was like, you have a degree, like you should go use it. So yeah, that was just like a whole kind of like I had to really confront what I wanted. But what I realized aside when my Etsy store shut down that I knew what was possible, even though I wasn't going to sell products. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew what was possible. So thankfully I was already freelancing during that time. So I kept doing those little gigs and I had built up a TikTok account while I was doing Etsy. So I was sharing what I was doing. And I think maybe at the time I had 10,000 followers on TikTok
Wow.
or around there. Yeah, worked out really well over that period. So I was also, people would ask me for help all the time with Etsy as well as with just marketing kind of because I don't really know why. I guess they assumed it just went hand in hand. So I put a Calendly link in my bio and I realized people were booking it to get on calls. It was like $10. Like I was like, just, whatever. So I think through there, I realized that copywriting was a skill that I had honed through Etsy because it was like mostly product descriptions. I was good at writing. And I guess it was just like kind of like a download in my head. It just made sense. Copywriting is what I need to do. And there was also a boom at this time on social media for like freelance copywriters. So I started looking for gigs online doing copywriting. And because I had my TikTok account, I was like, okay, I'll just put a link in my bio for copywriting and people started booking it.
That's good, yeah. So from your TikTok and stuff, that's when people started building up from there, would you say, like your client base?
Yeah, I would say my TikTok, yeah, it was a mixture of both. TikTok for sure. I was also using Upwork. So I tried Fiverr. I didn't really like it. There was a woman on TikTok. I don't know if she posts a lot now, but her name's Amy Suto and she's a writer now. I think she does more books now, but at the time she went viral for showing how she was a six-figure copywriter.
Right.
And I really looked up to her because she was different from the like young boys who were like, oh, you can do this like email copywriting thing and make money. You could tell that she was like into literature and really good at writing. And so I really saw myself in her. And she said she used Upwork. And I went on her Upwork profile and you can see on Upwork how much people make.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, this is clearly possible. So she had like a $20 Udemy course on Upwork. Yeah. So I got that. I did I was watching YouTube videos, brushing up my skills, and I got a lot of opportunities through Upwork. And then I learned more. So then I would share content about what I was learning and doing. And then through that, people would also book me through TikTok. So I was using both.
It's like, I'm just baffled that it's TikTok. That's like,
I
that's
know, yeah.
sort of clients, because that is not the platform that I would think people would go to. I would always think it's LinkedIn because it's like a professional platform, So I'm just really like shocked at like that TikToks help you grow so much, which is amazing. But again, it just goes back to the power of social media. And I'm probably going to keep saying this, but you wouldn't have come across that lady if it wasn't for TikTok. And I think she's changed your life as well. Like,
Yeah, she has.
people are
Yeah.
like changing.
A lot of people online have altered the way that my life has my
Yeah,
altered path. And that's why I'm so adamant on being transparent and sharing things, because
yeah,
I know how powerful that was for me. And yeah, like I have such a strong opinion on TikTok, because a lot of for like B2B, because a lot of people think that, oh, founders are not on TikTok. I've met big huge 7-figure founders through TikTok,
wow,
and I don't think they're watching, but they are. Everybody has the app. Or yeah, I think most people have it, and maybe they're not scrolling all day, but if by
yeah,
chance they come across you and they think you're interesting, or they think your work could be good, they'll save it.
yeah.
So yeah.
And in terms of, so then we've got as far as your Upwork journey,
Mhm.
and you tried Upwork, and then you followed this lady Anna Suto, did you say?
Amy Suto, yeah.
Suto, and then what happened?
Yeah, I just continued really. Basically, I did that. It was working. I was making money, but I wasn't really happy with I didn't feel a sense of security. It was kind of like some months were good, some months weren't. I was also charging low rates. Kind of every freelancer trades their time for money, but I wasn't making the most out of what I could do. And I was getting better at what I did. And I knew that there was like, I wasn't the happiest about what they call the feast and famine cycles in freelancing. That's kind of what I was experiencing throughout this period up until now. I kind of just made a lot of strategic decisions to change how I pitched my services. So, like, as an example, back then I was doing a lot of website copywriting, which was so creative and I loved it. So, an e commerce brand, like, as an example, this founder that was on Shark Tank, that's kind of like Dragon
Yeah,
Den in America, they reached out to me via TikTok. I think they were in the Sephora accelerator as well, which is pretty cool.
wow,
They had it was a makeup brand for people with skin conditions like eczema, etc. So, anyways, they like that's the sort of work I was doing. So they'd reach out to me and say, we need a website, would do the website. So I would do the homepage, product descriptions, all the things. And that was fine, but it was just a one-off project. And then there was no consistent income. So if I didn't have a lot of leads lined up, it would not be good, basically. And also, you can only charge so much for that because it's not directly affecting the business's revenue.
yeah, yeah,
So I was like, at the time, the best thing I can do is maybe take my skills and do email marketing. So
okay,
pitch those services. And then that worked out really well. So I was getting paid on retainer, and I was kind of getting those same clients, but more focused on conversions. And that was good. And then I also joined programs along the way that helped me kind of round myself out as a partner for ecom brands rather than just some person that does copywriting.
right, yeah,
Through that, I was able to expand my knowledge and the types of clients I could work with. And that also got me into paid social, which is a whole different game, but that's
right.
a whole other story. Yeah, basically, I just kept changing, making strategic decisions to feel more secure as a freelancer, which was really important to me.
And it's so obviously I think with each business you try something and then you learn from it and you tweak it, and like you say, it appears that that's what you've been doing, sort of iterating it and just sort of going, that didn't work, that worked well, let's add that in, let's not do that. And in terms of, you said that your prices were low, weren't charging sort of maybe what you were worth. Why were you not charging what you were worth?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking of like speaking about this more in a post on LinkedIn. I think there's an underlying idea that freelancers are kind of like broke hobbyists. At least that's what I thought. It's just kind of like, oh, she's good, like she's a writer, or she wants to be a musician or a comedian. So you
Right.
just kind of think, okay, you're just doing the like low work on the side. And this is what people perceive freelancers are. And I love Upwork, but I have beef with Upwork because I think it perpetuates the same like
Yeah.
idea. Like, you see the worst clients on Upwork looking for just someone who will work for the cheapest rates. Or
Yeah.
what you also see, which I really don't like, is people looking for full-time employees on Upwork, and freelancers who don't know any better take those positions. And it's like, you're not getting any benefits of being full-time. They're getting the tax benefits. Like, this is,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. So I think it was just the culture of freelancing when I went into it. I was just thinking, like, this is just a side type of hustle. And also because of the way that people around me also perceived it. Oh, she's just a freelancer. So I started SheFreelances. She's just a freelancer. She's just doing like side gig work. So I charged and worked as someone who's doing side gig hobbyist work. I don't
Yeah.
think it was intentional, but over time I realized that something was wrong there. So yeah.
It's almost like it's from what you're saying, it's like subconscious that you're thinking this is what people's perception is.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really charge that because they're going to think I'm just doing it as a hobby. And then obviously at some along that journey, you've had that transition and that change, that transformation where you've realized actually, do you know what? This isn't a hobby, and I know it's not a hobby. And then they now need to know that this is what I do, and this is what I offer. And it's almost having valuing yourself and sort of appreciating the skill set that you have. And obviously, you've got to demonstrate it to others, but you've got to also believe it yourself. And I think imposter syndrome can be quite strong when you're in that new sort of market and you're trying to sort of up your prices and you're thinking, will somebody pay for it? Don't know if they're going to pay for it. I'm going to lose people. And you have all those thoughts that go through your head. I can completely understand why you sort of weren't charging what you were worth. But now, from what I understand from your LinkedIn and things, you're now a six-figure earner through your business. How does that feel?
Yeah, I think something you just said I want to touch on. I think a part of it was the culture and like how I felt subconsciously. And then also I wasn't as good. It says reconnecting. That's good. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't think I was as skilled as obviously I wasn't as skilled as I am now. So obviously I had to go through those, I had to upskill, I had to get better. So it's not all, the culture. And I think that I spent a lot of time investing in my learning and education when I saw, oh, this could be a thing. So yeah, I think what really helped me, or what was your question? Your question was, how do I feel? I feel,
Feel as a six-figure? Yeah.
yeah, I feel good. I'm pretty high achiever. I always have been. So while I'm very proud of myself, like it's been hard to kind of be like, wow, like you've come a long way. Like this is really good. This is really, cool. Like I try not to like, I guess, praise myself too much. I don't know whether that's good or bad, but I feel happy that I stuck it out because there were many times throughout, those feast and famine cycles and everything where I was like, I don't know. I even remember when I first was looking for that internship that I initially got, I was like, wow, like this is going to be horrible because I graduated right when the pandemic started. And I was like, I am not going to get a job. And I was like, this is like, and as someone who was a high achiever and like, was like, this is going to be horrible. Like, I don't know if I remember applying to like 100 jobs and I was like, so just nervous about my future. So I'm glad that I'm very proud of myself for coming this far. But really, it's like I've just been consistent for the past 5 years, like from that very moment in 2021, before I even really knew what freelancing was till now, every single day I put in work. So it's like, of course, this is where I'm at, kind of. That's how I see it. It's like I have been very consistent and like taking action and being disciplined. So it's kind of like, okay, this is inevitable for me to be here right now. And if I continue doing this, like I can see where is next and whatnot. Yeah.
I think that's really strong mindset to have in terms of you saying that like obviously if I do this I'm going to get here, because I think in a lot of people self-doubt creeps in where they start to think like they're not seeing those immediate gains, because unfortunately we live in that sort of Amazon lifestyle where it's like, well, we need it now, we need it next day. And I think it takes a certain kind of mindset and certain type of personality to persevere and get to that, and sort of stick with it when you're not seeing those gains. Like even when like Etsy's sort of shut you down, some people would have just thought, you know what, forget it, it's not for me, I'm going to go and get a job because I can't deal with the ups and downs. And for me, I think you've just flipped it on its head by, you didn't like the ups and downs, so then you've done something about it, which isn't getting a job, but it's actually then creating retainers and more sort of a pipeline of income where you're not sort of scrapping around trying to find who's your next client. Like you've brought them to you, which I think when you're in it and you're doing it, you probably don't have time to reflect on it. But then as an outsider looking in, to say that you've sort of done all of that and you're very nonchalant about it, like, yeah, of course, like I did this and like now I've got six figures, like that's what was going to happen. Like, and that's really brilliant to sort of have that, just to hear that, because it's like, of course that's going to happen. Because I think we need to hear more of that, because I think we hear so much self-doubt. It's very inspirational to hear you say that just really casually as well. Like, so I just wanted to sort of say that really. That's really endearing. What I was next thing I was going to ask was, and maybe you touched on it, but it was on sort of my list of things to ask you, was courses. And I know that you mentioned doing a £20 course from Udemy. I know that you've spoken about courses on LinkedIn before and how much you spent on courses. What are your, well, I kind of know what your thoughts are on courses, but then would you mind sort of telling me a little bit about what your thinking was when you were sort of signing up to these courses?
Yeah. I want to also touch on one thing just from the response you just gave, that I never always had that mindset. Like, I did go and look for jobs when the Etsy shut down and everything, and I was nervous, but I kind of over this time have just changed literally how I think, like my brain chemistry. It's so hard for me to think negatively because like it was like part of what really kept me going in freelancing was the fact that it was the pandemic, and I saw a lot of people that I looked up to as a high achiever that was in corporate, maybe working at BuzzFeed or what I imagined I would be doing as a journalist, leaving because they would say, oh, I want to go do what I actually want to do or enjoy my work more. And I'm like, didn't you like your work? And it opened my eyes to kind of this like lie that we were seemingly being told that, this perfect path will get you this perfect job and you will like it and enjoy it. And everyone that seemed to have this perfect job didn't like it as much as they said they did, or at least how it looked from the outside. So I think all of those factors played a role, but I really basically gaslit myself into having this mindset now. So I know it comes off so nonchalant, but it was a lot of hard work, which I love to talk about because that's the most important part. But yeah, when it comes to courses, even that, I think I had a friend at the time who was very encouraging in terms of investing in yourself. Like, oh, you're going to pay that much money to go to school. You can pay like a quarter of that to learn from this person who has done the thing you want to do. So I have had my fair share of investments that were poor. For example, like investing into a drop shipping course right after my Etsy failed. I was like, oh, well, maybe I could do this thing. It's really similar. I spent a lot of money on that and it was horrible. But from every that I joined, I learned something that got me to the next step. So as an example, that program was horrible, but I learned a lot about ads at the time because their method was using Facebook ads, and that opened my eyes to paid social. And then I started freelancing I started freelancing at a agency that did ads and did marketing, and I had that knowledge from that program to build there, and that program wasn't meant for that specific thing. So all of these kind of small investments eventually led to what I do now. And I think I've heard Alex Hormozy talk about this a lot, which is the fact that even if the program doesn't give you the exact thing that you were looking for, there's always some sort of like stepping stone or something that you can take away from it. So yeah, I think I'm a big fan of just investing in yourself. And also a big layer, really, I think the most important layer is, at least for me, putting a monetary investment behind something that I wanted to commit to was the biggest driver of motivation. I don't really struggle with lack of motivation. Like, I'm pretty disciplined. I'll get up and go. It's very rare that I don't feel like doing something, but having spent a lot of money on a program will force you to just take action.
Yeah.
How they see it. And that for a lot of people, I think, is extremely powerful because it's like you're really committing to it. And it's like, I think like life kind of rewards you from taking that investment or putting that investment in, and it's harder to walk away from that. Very few people will invest a lot of money into something and then never try and execute it. And if you try and execute it, chances are you're gonna at least get somewhere. That will give you enough motivation to continue. So yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I think I speak to various people, and I've seen sort of people write stuff on social media where they're like, well, why would you pay XYZ to do that? Because you can just learn it on YouTube. You can just do these free courses and do it. But then it's exactly like what you're saying. 100% agree with you. When you've paid for something, that level of motivation, that level of risk almost as well, and that want to do it is much higher because you've committed. You've not just committed sort of mentally, you've committed financially. And if that course can get you from, can save you 5 years and reduce it down to 1 year, is it not worth the 5, 10, 15,000 or whatever it is? But I think people often see the monetary value of the course and then they want that direct well, what's it going to change for me right now? And they don't always understand, like you said, the journey. Like there's a journey that's involved, but and I'm not putting down free courses at all, because I think they've got their place. And when you do a course, any type of course, like you've mentioned, you might not gain from it what you thought you were going to gain from it, but I think you always walk away from majority of courses with a golden nugget that helps you move on to the next step. And you're thinking, well, I didn't think of that. And it just sort of puts all the pieces of the puzzle together for you. And I think sort of personal development and learning, it's like the age of it at the moment, but the accessibility of it is just like mind blowing, that you can sort of develop like you've done from your bedroom. You've
Yeah.
built a business,
Yeah.
like that's amazing, but then you've also, but at the same time, I think probably would want to put a disclaimer that it's not that the course, it's not just the course alone that's, from what I've understand what you've said, that's got you where you are. It's your mindset and your determination, and you have had those sort of times of doubt, but
Yeah.
you've pushed past those to get
Yeah.
to where you are. And in terms of, like you say, with the courses, is there one course that's stood out to you more than another, where you've thought, like if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just invested into a program in January, but the one before that was the one that really changed things to me. I want to say I got it April 2023. That
Okay.
might be wrong, but somewhere along there. I was doing really well as a freelancer already, but I wanted to get to the next level. And I kind of, I knew I was networking with people who were doing freelancing copywriting. And this guy told me about a program that he was in that was really, really good. And I was I didn't really care at the time, but I was just like, cool, that's great. And then he sent me the like website for it, and there was a video on it. It was like a free mini course. And I resonated with everything that the guy was saying. And basically, the program was called a creative advisor. It doesn't exist anymore, but it helped copywriters who were trying to scale and partner up and change their structure in terms of payments and retainers, getting equity deals and that kind of thing. And that was not
Yeah.
something that I saw, because there's a lot of female freelancers in the copywriting space. And also, I didn't mention this earlier, but a big part of why I think I was intuitively just charging the rates I was because I was just copying everyone else. Like, oh, website copywriters are charging this amount or this hourly rate on Upwork.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to copy that. But a big part of why I've started SheFreelances now is because I think that there's so many creative, especially copywriters, freelancers, female freelancers out there who just don't know that there are other methods or other ways to work with clients, and you can still use your creative skills. You might have to upskill in a certain way or do something a little bit more data driven than you would like. It's not going to be all creative, but you can pair with business in different ways. So, and essentially that's what the program taught. So I was the only girl. They even asked me, like, are you going to be okay with that? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was very hard in the beginning. It was the biggest investment I made. The first 2 months, it was basically crickets. Then I signed my first client using their methods. And then it really took off. And I ended that program like very, very happy. And I'm still friends with the guys that I was in it with today. A lot of them are doing very, very well. And yeah.
And then did that sort of lead you onto your freelancing, SheFreelances Academy? Was it that course that sort of helped you think about that, or did you always think you were going to open an academy? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, it was very I never really saw myself as someone who would do anything like SheFreelances, but that program definitely did open it gave me a little bit of it planted a seed, I would say, because yeah, I was the only girl. I was the only like person of color. And I was just thinking to myself, like I wasn't thinking that in the moment, but afterwards I was like, wow, this has really paid off. It would be so hard for maybe someone who has had different experiences than me to trust this like basically young white guy to give them all that money and then to like continue doing it, and or to trust them to give them money, but also then be the only girl and kind of build relationships. Like I think I've had experiences that have made me more comfortable in that situation. I just had determination, like whichever way I was going to get to the knowledge that I wanted, I would do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, just thinking about how many barriers there were basically, and or could be for other people. That was one thing.
Yeah.
And then I was doing really well as a freelancer, and I would talk to family members. I moved to the UK, and like people just didn't really understand what I was doing. Like really, like especially the older people in my family, like, oh, she's just a freelancer. Like that's just a term that, people would always say. Or I would start saying I'm a marketer just because I couldn't bother.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say I was a freelancer, or I didn't want to explain to people what I was
Yeah.
doing. And I read this article that kind of hyped me up. That was basically, oh, this, really like for someone who's been freelancing for many, many years, saying that we need to stop using the word freelancer because it is just setting us up to like look like we aren't as, I guess, knowledgeable or professional, something along those lines. And it sets women
Yeah.
up for failure, basically.
Right.
And I was like, it's just a word. And the landscape of freelancing has changed so much. Like
Yeah.
we're moving into a world where all of these e-com brands are blowing up on TikTok, and they don't have built buildings, and they're not hiring people full time. They're working with people like me who are running their social media, doing their ads, whatever. They have lean companies. And this has been a huge change within the past, let's say 5 to 10 years, that people haven't
Mm.
really realized yet. Like there's just so much change in that industry. So I was like, one, I'm not just a freelancer, I'm a freelancer and I get paid really well. Two,
Mm-hmm.
I wish more women had access to the knowledge that I do. Not that it's not there, but there's some barriers. And I
Yeah.
knew that there was a lot of other freelancers that looked up to me and were struggling, female freelancers. So I wanted to create a space where they could basically feel like I could just basically share everything that has led me up to this point, but create a space where it felt comfortable, it felt safe, and there was less barriers. It's like, she looks like me, I can relate to her,
Yeah.
I trust her. Those things are harder to come across these days, right? In this realm. And I also really believe that freelancing is the future because of the landscape of how the world is going. So there's a lot of layers there. But really, what I see SheFreelances as, aside from this program that it is now, is kind of like a hub for any female freelancer in the future to come and learn, or who wants to freelance to come and learn the skill that they want and have a community. So
And what does it look like for somebody that was going to join up to SheFreelances? What does that look like for them? Like, what do you offer?
yeah, so right now it's a 6-month program where so the main program is She's a High Ticket Freelancer. So it walks you through how to go from zero, whether you are leaving a 9 to 5 or whether you're freelancing right now, but you're kind of in that feast famine cycle, how to restructure what you offer and land high ticket retainers with, what I like to call whale clients or high ticket clients, and then scale that up to wherever you want to go. Some people don't care about being 6-figure freelancers. They might be happy on 5,000 a month or 8,000 a month, whatever it is. But I think for all of the women that are joining, they're coming from either corporate backgrounds or just very skilled creative in marketing usually. And it's like they shouldn't be charging any less than $2,500 a month on retainer for the work that they're doing. They might need to do some specific changes. So maybe they need to upskill in a certain way or reach out to a specific ICP, like ideal client persona, but there's a way for them to kind of change how their offerings to get to that point. And that's basically what we work through. And then alongside just having a community, because being a freelancer can be lonely. I think that's something else that helped me. I was an only child and used to kind of just being alone. So I would talk to people online, but I was kind of just like in my room doing things. Whereas for some people, that's just horrible and they can't get used to that. So I can see, as a byproduct of starting this, how that community has been really powerful for a lot of the girls in there as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's it sounds like an amazing space, and like you've obviously seen, well, you've not seen somebody like you doing what you do, so you've created a platform for other people that can, because if they can see you, they can be you effectively. And I think that you're also leaving a legacy in a way, because you're not just changing your life, you're helping change the life of others that probably can't, that might be intimidated by going on a course where it's all men, or might be thinking that be taught by somebody that's Caucasian because I don't relate to them, I don't connect with them. So
Yeah.
I think that's amazing you sort of created that space. And I know that you sort of from your LinkedIn, you mentioned that you're the top 1% of female freelancers. I
Mhm.
mean, that's massive. That's such an amazing sort of backed figure, really. How do you feel about that?
I guess my answer would be the same as, the kind of the question around making six figures. I think one of my biggest posts on LinkedIn was me basically speaking to maybe the older generation or people who are skeptical about freelancing and earning six figures and, all the number things, which one I share because the Amy Suto woman that I brought up earlier, she would share
Yeah.
her numbers, and that really opened my eyes. And people, especially in different cultures, they're really opposed to sharing about their income and all of that stuff. But it's so powerful to kind of break limiting beliefs for people who don't talk about that, don't know what other people are doing and that kind of thing. So that's why I do that. But anyways, in that post I was basically talking about how, I saw it was possible, all of the e-com startups, TikTok, I've seen businesses get a million views and make like millions of dollars from that, like millions of views, make millions of
Yeah.
dollars from a small TikTok post. And I am basically just taking the oldest trick in the game, which many of people have been doing, just being a middleman in between that, helping people, reach, like as a marketer, get to more people or optimize how they're reaching out to people so they can make the most amount of money. So at the end of the day, it's inevitable for me as a freelancer who's working consistently every single day to develop better skills in this industry and making strategic turns to ensure that I felt comfortable in terms of, like if you have money anxiety or savings or all that things, making strategic turns to get myself to the point I want to be. It's inevitable that would happen just because I was being very intentional about it. So I'm very
Mm-hmm.
happy, and I'm thankful that I followed my gut and instincts like throughout the time, even when I felt like, oh, the things are hard or I'm not sure what I'm doing, which is most of the time. I'm glad that I just followed my
Mm-hmm.
gut and continued to just trek on that path and
Mm-hmm.
take opportunities when I saw them. I'm very happy, and I'm at the time, like during the journey, it felt like it was so long, real like
Yeah.
the days felt long, but I'm like, wow, it was so worth it. And it's only been a very
Yeah. Yeah.
short period of time in the grand scheme of my life, God's willing. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't imagine what can happen now with this new knowledge, new information, new strategic changes I'm making. So yeah.
Cool. Just lastly, I wanted to just go quite back to the beginning in terms of you mentioned that your parents were like, you need to just go to university and get a degree, whatever it's in doesn't matter, just get a degree. Do you feel that's helped you in your career journey, and why was that their thinking? And the reason that, just a bit of context why I'm asking that question, is because being from an Asian culture, that's quite a strong belief that majority of that sort of our parents of my generation, our parents are immigrants to the UK, and they valued education over anything really, and very strong on you need to go to university. What were your parents' reasons? Do you know sort of why they wanted that for you and whether that's helped you?
Yeah, both of my parents never went to university. So they're immigrants from Jamaica, and they came, my dad,
Mm-hmm.
they have some college like certificates or degrees or in very like specialized fields, but they never got the chance to go to university. So I think that played a big
Mm-hmm.
role. It's like they've come all this way. Now you get the chance to do that. So obviously you're going to do that. And obviously, from their perspective, getting education in or higher education was the best route to making the best out of your life in terms of money and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. From my understanding, that was their perspective, and what, it made sense. Like all of the years, like as they were growing up and they were working and stuff, people who followed that script would become what they deemed as successful. So, um, yeah. And I think there was a second part of the question. Oh yeah, how
Yeah.
I think that's impacted. I think for me,
Yeah.
I had such a good experience in university. So at the university I went to, I did double major journalism and humanities, specifically the humanities part of that program. It was very small. You had to have really high grades to get into that. And the profs knew every person. by name. They would sometimes like edit your essay via recording audio and speak to you. So it was like I learned a lot and I met my best friends. I think I moved away from home for the first time. So I learned a lot about myself. That's where I really got into that kind of like feel or creative like zone of like, yeah, creative zone. And
Mhm.
that played a huge role, I think, in how I operate now. There's a lot of different things. So, for example, in journalism, you have to go out to random people and ask to interview them. And that was very nerve wracking in the beginning. I remember the first day of journalism school, they're like, go and get an article from a random person you don't know. And I was terrified. And I spent like hours
Yeah.
walking around the mall, like, oh my goodness. And then I went up to this random guy and he gave me like he was like an immigrant from somewhere and I got a good story. But that like those kind of things really helped me to build up my confidence and learn how to speak in a professional setting. Journalism
Mhm.
surprisingly taught me a lot about marketing because you have to write succinctly, you have to find the story. So there's so many little things that I think helped. And for those reasons, I think it was very, and I also got scholarships as well. So they didn't pay off. Obviously, I had student debt, but they were like, it eased the weight, I guess. Like, I think in America, it's way more expensive to go to school. I think it would be double. So I
Yeah.
think in certain circumstances, university can be, or I think for most people, actually, I should say this. I think I'm a big fan of university and I wish it was more accessible to most people because especially the
Yeah. Yeah.
humanities. I think it's so powerful in learning kind of like the history of the world and literature and all that stuff. It just changes your perspective on life. So I wish it was more
Mhm.
accessible and not usually like for most people basically like a like death sentence. Like it's like you if you go to school,
Yeah.
you may get a job and it'll be good, but you'll probably never pay off your student debt like in America. So I'm like
Yeah.
it's so hard to just like be like, yeah, it was great. And I think you should do it too. But I think that it can be very powerful. And I also think the age that we're pushed to go to university is slightly young. I think people mature at different ages. But for me, if I had maybe, like while it was good, I could see how much more beneficial it could be if I had like a little internship in between, which I think they might do that in the UK.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But if I had a little internship in between, or I was just a little bit more prepped, it could be even more powerful. So I just think the system needs a little bit of changing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you say, you've gained things again from university that you probably didn't realize you were going to gain, like
Yeah.
marketing skills by journalists, public speak, like speaking to sort of confidence in speaking
Yeah.
with like members of the public or in a professional setting. And you're always learning, whatever environment that you're sort of going into.
Yeah.
I think we've covered so much stuff today, and it's been so great to speak with you and learn about your journey, Denee. And I think that the key sort of take homes for me is that you've moved to a different country and managed to set up a business from your bedroom that now sort of generates six figures.
Yeah.
But then it's not been without its sort of turbulent times in terms of the Etsy and sort of shutting you down. And I think also just having the I think being brave enough to sort of almost take sort of a risk on yourself and just thinking, well, I've educated myself. I've been inspired by people on social media, and maybe that can be me, because I think sometimes people can look at things on social media and think, well, that couldn't happen to me. I couldn't do that. That's for them. They're successful. But you're proof that it can happen, and the only deciding factor for me is yourself, is you, and what you're willing to put into it. So thank you so much for your time. The only last thing I wanted to ask was, there any books that you would recommend? Because I know you've already mentioned one book earlier on in the podcast. Is there any book that you recommend that is a must read?
Yeah. The book is called Psycho-Cybernetics. It was one of the first book I read, Psycho-Cybernetics by Matthew Maltz. I think I said that correctly. But the book basically is about how he's a plastic surgeon and he talks about how your mind affects basically your happiness and success and how much power you have and able to control your mind. And he has such a unique perspective because he was doing plastic surgery for people with extreme cases of, like let's say facial, what would be the word?
Deformities.
Yeah, deformities, or people who just felt really insecure. And he would see like firsthand differences in how the treatments affected them. And as I've come into this and all the conversations I have with a very strong mindset, but I promise you, I did not always have this mindset. Like, I really worked on it. Like, I'm such a different person now. I've really worked hard to have a positive mindset, to be disciplined and to think positively and to make the most out of life. And I think a big part of that was the book and the things that I've learned on how much control you can have over your mind. And yeah, so if I wouldn't recommend any business book, really at the end of the day, it's all starts within you. And if you can fix your mindset, you can accomplish pretty much anything. Doesn't matter what, strategy, business strategy you use. Obviously that's important, but it's like, as long as you have a strong mindset, you can accomplish anything. So definitely recommend a read of that.
That's really, I think mindset is massive. And I remember recently I watched a YouTube video, and it was a person, I think it was a psychologist actually, and he was talking about how your brain is just another muscle that you just need to train, like that's as you would train like your biceps or triceps or whatever. If you can train your brain to have the thoughts that you want it to have, and to sort of dial the volume down on those negative thoughts and improve your mindset, it is transformational and it's life changing. I 110% believe in what you're saying, that you sat here now with that positive mindset. It probably wasn't you 5 years ago, but you've worked on yourself to get you there. No one else is going to come and get you there. You've got to get yourself there. And if that book is sort of life changing for you, it'd be amazing to see what it does for other people. So thank you so much for your time again today, Denee. And people can contact you on, I know you're on LinkedIn and YouTube, but I will put your links in the show notes so they can contact you there. And we'll see you guys on the next one.